So in this video, we're going to look more closely at this Hardy Weinberg theorem and do some quick and easy kinds of problems with it so that you can see some of the applications that can be done with this kind of problem. So just as a review, here we have the first of the two equations, P plus Q equals 1, whereas P equals the percentage of dominant alleles and Q equals the percentage of recessive alleles. And so don't get this mixed up. If you want to think of it this way, this is the allele frequency equation. All right, so P is just looking at all the big R's. If there are 50 big R's in a population, that means that there are 25 individuals, right? Because it may mean less. Let's say that there are 50 alleles in a population. If there are 50 alleles in a population, that means there are 25 individuals. Why does that mean that? Because every individual has 2 alleles for that gene. And so let's just use that set of parameters here. Let's go to 100 to make things easy. Let's say that there are 100 individuals in a population. That's the population number. So there are 200 alleles in that population, right? Because each individual has 2 A's. And let's say that 84 people, we need to go to the next equation before we can do this. Well, let's just use this. Let's say that there are 84 big A's in that population. Well, that means that there are 116 little A's in that population. Now, we don't know this yet. We don't know what percentage of these things there are, but we can say pretty clearly what this is going to look like. All right. And I'm going to use some different numbers to help us later with our math. And so let's say that there are, for the sake of discussion, let's say that there are 164. Actually, let's just go with those previous numbers, because why not? So let's go with these numbers. 84 big A's in a population and 116 little A's. Well, we can do the math, right? And we can divide 84 by 200, and we see that that is 0.42. And so because the percentage of big A is P, then we know that P equals 0.42. Now, I don't have to do the math here. I could just take 1 minus 0.42 because P plus Q equals 1 to get the other one, but I can check myself. The percentage of A is going to be 116 divided by 200, right? Because there's 200 total alleles. 116 of them are A, and so if I want to find out the percentage of A, I would take 116 and divide it by 200, and that's going to be 0.58. So Q is going to equal 0.58. And that matches up with my P plus Q equals 1. All right, so that's just a simple kind of problem. So let's take those numbers into here. All right, so this is the second equation for Hardy Weinberg, and this is the genotype frequency equation. And you need to remember them that way, allele frequency and genotype frequency. That will help you, all right? Whereas P squared equals the percentage of big A, because if P equals big A, then P times P is big A, big A. Makes sense. 2PQ is the percentage of big A, little a, because again, big A, little a can also be written as little a, big A, and so that's PQ plus PQ, or 2PQ. And then Q squared is equal to the percentage of little a, little a. When you are solving a Hardy Weinberg problem, you need to write this down, and you need to put a star by it and a smiley face and your favorite animal and highlight it in whatever your favorite color is. when you are solving for a Hardy Weinberg problem, Q squared, or Q in general, is going to be what you are looking for. All right, let me explain. If you are told, for instance, that there are 100 people, and in this population, brown eyes are dominant over blue eyes, and you have 60 people in the population that have brown eyes, and I say solve for, then I ask you, what is P? Well, people with brown eyes can have one of two genotypes, right? They could be this or this. And so then you have this hard thing to do. You have this really crazy algebra to do. And we don't want to do crazy algebra. We want to keep it simple. And so here's the way we're going to keep it simple. If I'm given that there are 60 brown eyes, then what else do I know? If there are 100 people, then 40 of those have blue eyes, right? I'm not given that. I wasn't told that explicitly, but I know that. And what genotype do those blue-eyed people have? Every single time, 100%. That. And so let's just use this little problem that I've set up for us here. All right. So I know that 40% of the population is this, right? I know that because this is the information that I was told up here. I was given this info. From that info, I was able to derive that 40 people have blue eyes. And I know that the genotype for blue is little a, because I was told that here. And I know that 40%, because 40 out of 100 is 40%, have this genotype. I also know that the percentage of little a is equal to Q squared. And so I also know this, right? Based off just things that are known, things that we've already said. And so I could say that Q squared then is equal to 0.4. Now, for some of you, I didn't do anything crazy, but for others of you, I may have made a real big leap there. And so make sure that you remember that percentages are just decimals, and the number 1 represents 100%. That's why P plus Q equals 1. All right, so if Q squared equals 0.4, then I'm going to solve for Q, because remember up here I erased it, but remember up here the problem was, what is P? And so if Q squared is 0.4, then I'm going to take the square root of Q, or 0.4, and you guys are going to watch me use this calculator. I don't even know what I'm doing. Let's see. Fun times. Well, I'm probably just missing it there. This is what you get for a live video. So I have a calculator in my hand here. That's 0.4. The square root of 0.4 is 0.63. All right. And if you're wondering, oh no, that doesn't seem right, let's do the math. 0.63 squared is equal to 0.4, or, rounded. In general, when you do these problems, don't round, or don't go past the 100th digit. So to the nearest 100th is fine for us in this. So if I know that Q is 0.63, what do I know about P? Well, I know again that P plus Q equals 1. And so if Q equals 0.63, then P equals 0.37. All right, so let's do another problem. Let's talk about bears. So let's say that in this population there are 1,000 bears. And in bears, so we talked about cute ears in the last video, so we'll say that cute ears are dominant and ugly ears are recessive. And I'm going to say that 480 bears have cute ears. And my question for you is, how many bears are heterozygous for that trait? This is a couple of steps. But again, what is the thing that I told you to draw your favorite animal next to and highlight in your favorite color? We're going to solve for Q. Once we solve for Q, the questions to the world are open before us. And so if I know that 480 bears have cute ears, remember those individuals can have this genotype or this genotype. So I'm going to put that number on the shelf for a moment, and I'm going to use the other number that I can infer. If 480 have cute ears, then 520 have ugly ears, right? Because 1,000 bears, 480 have cute ears. That means that 520 have ugly ears just by process of elimination. And I know that the only possible genotype for ugly ears is little a. All right. And so that means that the percentage of ugly ears in the population is 0.52. Where did I get 0.52? Well, I divided 520 by 1,000. I'm not going to put that in a calculator, nor should you have to. But if you have to, that's okay. We won't tell. And the percentage of homozygous recessive in a population is equal to Q squared. How do I know that? Because I'm given that information. All right. I won't be given that information. Only thing I'll be given on the test is this, and this. But I need to know this. So I'm given that information. And so I know that Q squared equals 0.52. Therefore, I know that Q equals, plug it into my hidden calculator behind the scenes. Q is equal to 0.72. Therefore, I know that P is equal to 0.28 because I know that P plus Q equals 1, Q equals 0.72, then P has to equal 0.28. Now, I was asked to solve for this. And what is the percentage of this? It's 2PQ. So what do? Well, I take 2 times 0.72 times 0.28, and I get the answer. 2 times 0.72 times 0.28, 0.4. And so you get the idea. 0.2PQ equals 0.4, and so that's the answer to my problem. I could have solved for any of those things. If I was asked to solve for P squared, if I was asked to solve for the percentage of these guys in the population, I would just take 0.28 and square it. That'd be easy. What if I was asked to solve for how many bears are heterozygous? How many bears? Well, if the percentage of the population is this, then how many bears? It's 400 bears. So 400 of that 480 are heterozygous, right? Because 40% of the population is that. What if I was asked how many dominant alleles are there? That's a fun question. How many dominant alleles are in the population? Not the percentage of dominant alleles, but how many? Well, I know the percentage of dominant alleles is that, right? Because P equals the percentage of dominant alleles. I know there are 1,000 bears, And so how many alleles are there? 2,000 alleles, right? Because every bear has 2. And so now I'm just going to take my 0.28 and multiply that times 2,000. And we'll do that for math unable. That's going to be 560 big A's. And so then how many little a's are there? Well, that's just 2,000 minus 560, right? And so we could do a lot of things with this type of equation. You're going to have a lot of practice in this. And so, again, some of you are just like deer in the headlights at this point. You're like, what the crap? I don't know how to do that. That's okay. You're going to have a lot of practice, and everybody's going to have that, okay, I see, I get it now kind of moment. Some of you have already stopped the video because you already get it, and that's fine too. But again, if you're struggling, don't lose heart. We will get through this. It'll be fine.